All right, so we've got a chat window open and we've got the audio going, and I'm Sam Patterson, and this is my paperless classroom. And I'm excited to have you here today because we're talking about design thinking in elementary. So, one of the things I really like about Makerspace, hey look, I'm Sam, about Makerspace and elementary ed is the fact that kids get to build stuff. And it's super exciting because we're working on different things, we're building different things, we're working with Watts and Marios and various things falling on top of the computer. And in that potential, there's a lot of opportunities for us to do things that aren't the greatest things in the world, like these tools. They're so awesome, but it's really easy to fall down the rabbit hole and end up pursuing goals that are not our highest goals. So when we're teaching and we're looking at this makerspace, what difference can it make in my teaching? We're really trying to figure out how we can construct a learning experience where students are going to be able to make choices, they're going to be able to pursue their own interests, and they're going to be doing things that we want them to do to become better people. When we give students the opportunity to do whatever they want or to pursue passion-based learning, it's incumbent upon us to try to nurture in them passions and desires that really face back out to the community, that involve others, that benefit others. And this is why I love design thinking. Design thinking is a great lens to use to make hands-on learning really meaningful. Building change anybody's life. But if the students are engaged in a process where they talk to people who need something in their life, like one of the great projects I saw was a real simple talking to engineers about how to land things on Mars, and the kids designed these structures that would cushion things that fell to Mars. They learned a lot about structures, they learned a lot about geometry, they learned a little bit about Mars, and they got to talk to people who knew stuff about Mars. There was an arrangement where scientists, amazing, right? Anyway, I saw it in post, it looked really cool. But oftentimes, when we look at project-based learning or challenge-based learning or what have you, it's not easy to see how this can connect to what we're doing. It's not easy to take PBL and just drop it into a classroom. It's not easy to say, oh, we're going to makerspace and boom, we got it. What we have to do is we have to really create an experience that helps students want them to be spending time. I love that my kids are going to be able to use these coin cell battery holders to create electronic projects that connect to fish with LEDs, right? Little angler fish for you there, right? Just keep swimming. But if we just build fish for the sake of building fish, are we really making the best possible use of the resources that we have available? So, instead what you do is you engage in a design thinking process that asks students to look outside of themselves, to do these kinds of things. Now, it doesn't have to be super complex, although some things are. I've seen people working with elementary students in design thinking, which I think is really great, especially the youngest ones. And in doing this, it's not just about getting kids to create something new, it's about getting them to understand others. And we get them to understand others by having them talk to others and interview them, right? And really get to know about their experience. And it doesn't have to be super complex. The third graders could interview the first graders about their experience the first week of school and then come back with ideas as to routines or procedures or even products that might make those first graders' experience of school more enjoyable or better for them. And this can be kids talking to kids talking to other adults. I've even seen some teachers who have the kids start on focusing on themselves. Instead of looking outside of themselves, they look for them to feel about a situation. And once they study a situation, they look at it, they get the kids to really think carefully about it and think about how they feel about that situation and what could be done to change that. Really a great exercise because it gets kids not only to think about themselves, it gets them to think about others and realize that other people are having experiences that our students can impact, our students can influence. This design thinking thing is huge, and my real love affair with it comes from the focus on empathy and the focus on getting to know each other and really coming to a stronger awareness of all of the individuals in your learning community. I think that's really important to have kids really kind of tuned into that. I'm going to check the live. Hey, there's actual people here. Hi, Matthew. Hi, Rachel. So glad you're here. Is the sound okay? I'll check back. I can't quite tell with the levels. And I'm not a professional podcaster yet, even though I've been on hundreds of episodes of podcasts. Jeff always does this hard work. But I signed on to YouTube Live. I set up the Wirecast encoder, which is why you get that little wonderful little watermark right there. Apparently it's free. So yeah, design thinking is the lens we're using. Now, we just had a meeting today. Small group of us went to the Design Thinking Institute over the summer and learned a lot, and we're going to take that to the other teachers tomorrow. We want everybody working on design thinking, but we don't want to throw a bunch of, thank you, Rachel. We don't want to throw a bunch of new stuff at the teachers and say, here's more requirements and more requirements. So we want them to really understand that design thinking is a decision-making process that we can use to get kids doing great work. So what we're going to do tomorrow is really focus on empathy and have them do a really bounded empathy exercise where they're going to interview another teacher and they're going to say, you know, they're going to ask how the beginning of the school year is for them, what they're worried about, what they're looking forward to, and their job in that interview, the partner who's not talking, is to write down everything that the partner who is talking says. And they're like, everything? And I actually said verbatim in the instructions because we want everything. Not because it's super important that you write down every word they say, but it's super important as the interviewer that you don't do anything but record what they're saying and ask them more questions. And if you want to learn more about what they're saying, ask them more questions. But the challenging thing for our kids is we've taught them to dialogue. So when they hear somebody else's ideas, they want to jump in with their own ideas. And that can get really hard. Now, design thinking gives them some experience with that, which when I'm reading about this, I'm reminded of like the autoethnography work I studied in graduate school, right, where nothing like this was happening with kids at that point. And it was just at the point there were a lot of those disposable cameras, and people were like, oh, you can put disposable cameras in kids' hands and they can take pictures, and we've come so far since that point. We have phones and iPads, all of that great tech that allows them to record interviews, to watch them time and again. But what we want to make sure that we do is during that interview process, we're really focusing on collecting information, and we wait to make meaning until the next step. We're going to walk the teachers through that a little bit, but we're not going to belabor it. The importance isn't the order of the steps or the number of steps or the exact wording. The importance is you get kids engaged in empathy. Okay, so that's kind of where we're starting with design thinking. And I know we're going to do more with it, and I'm going to share as we go, because it's going to be a developing understanding. Because that's the only way that we're going to get everybody really integrating this into their classroom. When we went to Nueva, we were met by students who told us about how they use design thinking to help them write songs and poems. And that was amazing because it really drove home the fact that this was a decision-making tool. 3 things we're doing in this. One of them is talking briefly about design thinking. Check. The second one, I want to talk a little bit about organizing the space because I'm standing here in my space, and we can talk a little bit about organizing. And a bunch of my coworkers just gave me a really hard time because they're like, "Oh my goodness, your space is so overwhelming and not tidy." And you know what? It's not tidy. It's there's a lot of stuff, and it's all on the tables because I'm trying to figure out where all of this stuff fits into the grand scheme of things, right? But what you're going to notice is I've got some shelving units there and there, which right now have a lot of bins on them. Those bins are going to actually be stored on the shelves, and those shelves are going to be largely clear because that's where we're going to hold student work. One of the first things you want to plan for where do we store this is where do we store the work kids are doing when they're not actively doing in it, right? Because if you don't have a place for their stuff, it won't survive. And you know, if you want kids to make and create, you have to respect their acts of creation, and you have to respect and protect their stuff, sometimes from them. So we're going to have, here, I'm going to grab one of the boxes we use. Our laptops came in these cardboard boxes that are a lot like trays. We have nice laptops. But we're recycling these, or repurposing them to be bins that we can put tape labels on and then put on the shelf, and we can stack multiples on there. That's really important because you have to, you really have to protect their stuff. Yeah, the Nueva School Design Thinking Institute, that's where we went. It's based on, they've been working on implementing design thinking in the classroom at Nueva School in the Bay Area for many years. And it is based on work done by the D School. There's a very strong collaboration there. And Nueva School, yes, I agree, Rachel, totally amazing. And they had great examples of projects that the kids were doing that were meaningful design thinking. One of them, my favorite, is one that we refer to as the Ghost Bathroom project, where the kindergarten students were completely freaked out because they thought there was a ghost in the bathroom, and they didn't really think there was a ghost in the bathroom, but there was something weird going on in the bathroom, and they said it was a ghost, and everybody got on board with the ghost in the bathroom. So then they had the bathroom problem, and they ended up designing the bathroom and changing some of the lighting, and they finally just figured out that the ghost was actually the shadow cast by the afternoon light coming through the grate on the door. But they really made the bathroom much nicer overall and a much easier for kids to use comfortably, which was important because this is a problem that came up because initially the teachers were like, why is the bathroom such a mess? And kids were essentially running away before they were done using space. The final frontier. No, organization is huge because ultimately what I want my space to do is I want it to accommodate my students independently. So I'm talking to you from the textiles space here. See if I can do this without unplugging my audio, right? We've got textiles. And that's in kind of one corner of the room. There's a tools space way over there in that side of the room. Way over there, that's a hat. And I've got some storage over there, and I've got a little bit of storage in the back of the room, and way in the back of the room, I've got my little bits storage set up. There's, one there, and more of them over there. And those are all, I've tried to organize all of those so kids can get to them as much as possible because access is huge. Safety is huge, and access is huge. So there are a few things that live in the closet. There are Arduinos and some of the more expensive boards. I put them in the closet, not so the kids can't get to them, but so I know where they're at, and I can kind of keep dibs on them and be able to be ready to help the kids if they need them. Yeah, I will need to keep my place cleaner. And I'm nervous because we're going to have a class and then about 5 minutes before the other class. My classes are 90 minutes, and my plan is to use the first 60 minutes for build and make, and the last 30 minutes for reflect and meaning making. And hopefully, we'll also get to do cleanup and that kind of stuff during that time. 3 things in this video. First one is talk about design thinking. Did that. Second one is talk about space. And I think I did that. Third one was the weekly challenge. So, I will put a link on my paperless classroom in a blog post that supports this and several other places beginning next week. And beginning next week, we will have a weekly challenge that I'm going to issue to all of my pre-K through 6th grade students. And in this weekly challenge, it will be something that they could do quickly or they could totally geek out on and go really deep into. But the idea is, I have my makerspace open during lunch. Monday and Tuesday, it's 4th through 6th grade. Wednesday, Thursday, it's 1st through 3rd. And Friday, it's pre-K and K. And I want to have a weekly challenge that all of them can participate in and share. And I want it to be something that makes everybody feel excited about going into the makerspace. And especially at the beginning, I want all of these challenges to be constructed in such a way that everybody's like, I could do that. I could rock that challenge. Even the teachers, I want them to feel comfortable enough that they're going to come into the makerspace before school, during lunch, etc., and participate. I'll tell you what the first week is. The first week, the challenge is make a paper airplane. I think I phrased it, build the best paper airplane, which is really vague and totally awesome because it allows me to have many criteria for what is best, and we share their process. And if they're super stoked about their airplane, I'm going to ask them to make a video on how to build their airplane. So each week, the idea is that we'll have, right, you can totally do this first challenge. We can all do this first challenge, right? And each week, we'll have people participate in the challenge. They'll leave me with their airplanes. I'll scan them in. I'll put them on the bulletin board. I'm thinking maybe a Padlet for other schools to post their stuff, so I'll have an interior area where I can post it, but there's also other people, a more public space where we could have, school-to-school sharing, because it's about getting people creating and sharing and thinking. And the big deal with design thinking is you come up with a need, you figure out a plan, you create it, and then you share it, and you interact with that. So that's what we've got planned. And I've talked to a couple other teachers, and they're pretty excited about the Challenge of the Week idea. I hope that I can count on you to bring your kids into the Challenge of the Week. And my goal is that it's something they can interact with even on their own. So once the Challenge of the Week gets momentum, I'm hoping that, I change that challenge out every week. Kids come in and work on it, but I'm not recruiting people to do it. It's just there to take advantage of and to kind of nudge people into figuring out different materials. We'll start with paper, and then we might go to fabric, and then we might do some circuit work, and then we might get into some programming. But there's just so many things that we can do that aren't rocket science. Now, mind you, I think we'll get into some rocket science at some point, but the whole plan is to keep the access level as low as possible and the ceiling as undefined as possible, so there's room for everybody to build skills and do some really, really excellent work. I'm going to wrap this up a little bit earlier than I guessed, but I think this has worked. And I think I'll have a hard version that I can actually produce out even better. So I'm excited to see what this looked like, and we're going to do this a lot more and talk about the, right? I know, Rachel, that rocket science joke was totally in there for you. We're going to do this some more because I think that the only way that we can really, as a community, figure out what the best things to do with makerspaces and our elementary kids is to do a bunch of stuff and share it and figure out what's working and what isn't. My plan for the year is to push hard on empathy and to really get access and get as many people comfortable, happy, and contributing in the space as possible. Thank you so much.